and this is one of the most bizarre things that I've seen in a very long time, to the point where I don't actually even know necessarily how I feel about it, other than the fact that I'm not a fan of government intervention in almost any case. But let's talk about this brand new news regarding Donald Trump and Hollywood, as Donald Trump announces a 100% tariff on all films produced outside of the United States of America. I'm going to go through his post here. It was a Truth Social post, and then we'll watch I've got a video from producer Patrick, and we're going to take you through some questions that Variety had, as well as then some reactions that they have compiled from producers in the industry, and then take you through some of the posts on social media to kind of get a gauge of what everybody thinks about this. So this was his initial post on Truth Social. This is what he says. The movie industry in America is dying a very fast death, he says. Other countries are offering all sorts of incentives to draw our filmmakers and studios away from the United States. Hollywood and many other areas within the USA are being devastated. This is a concerted effort by other nations and therefore a national security threat. It is, in addition to everything else, messaging and propaganda. Therefore, I am authorizing the Department of Commerce and the United States Trade Representative to immediately begin the process of instituting a 100% tariff on any and all movies coming into our country that are produced in foreign lands. He says, we want movies made in America again. Look, the thing is you don't have to go to foreign lands to have Hollywood propagandizing American viewers. They do that perfectly fine on their own. Actually, arguably enough, I would bet that most connoisseurs of things like anime or manga would say that the messages told, like the hero's journey in the average everyday manga story, is going to be leagues better than most of the weird modernity that you get from Hollywood. But let's go through some of this and see what people say. Like I said, I don't even necessarily know what I think about it, other than I don't want the government involved, and it's weird. So let's first listen to this video from producer Patrick, who's one of my favorite people to follow when it comes to behind the scenes stuff in regards to Hollywood. He posted this yesterday.
News: Trump just announced a 100% movie tariff, claiming it as a threat to national security. Hi, it's producer Patrick bringing you the latest in the ever-evolving film and TV industry. Donald Trump just called foreign-made movies a national security threat, and he is slapping them with a 100% tariff. In a Truth Social post, the president said he ordered the Commerce Department to immediately start taxing all movies, quote, in foreign lands. No timeline and no details, but the message was loud. Hollywood's global business model is under attack. Studios like Disney, Paramount, and Warner Brothers have already driven production outside of the United States. However, some economists warn that a 100% tariff could end up hurting American productions, driving up budgets and leading to even more
Imagine thinking Hollywood needs help driving up budgets.
job cuts at home. Meanwhile, China has already escalated their side of the entertainment trade war, slashing the number of American films allowed into its theaters and warning of even more restrictions. Back home, Trump says it's about protecting the U.S. from, quote, messaging and propaganda. However, for Hollywood, the stakes just got much higher. As always, would love to hear your thoughts. We got
Producer Patrick is one of those really, really great sources in Hollywood right now. He's got a great vibe, and he gives you lots of detailed inside information in regards to the industry. I highly recommend checking out his channel. So he gets into the nitty-gritty of what he says Trump says it's about. Let's go through what Variety now says. They have their own questions about Trump's planned tariffs. So it says President Trump has announced a plan on Sunday night to slap a 100% tariff on all foreign-produced films, prompting a slew of questions from Hollywood. Will he do that? Trump only said he was authorizing the U.S. Trade Representative in the Commerce Department to impose a 100% tariff on foreign lands. He didn't say he would do it. With previous tariff threats, Trump has sometimes made good and sometimes backed off in the face of pressure. Well, a big part of that is also, you know, it's a tactic to get people to remove reciprocal tariffs that they have on things in the U.S. economy. I don't think that's the case here. I don't think Trump sees, for instance, China's cap on American movies or foreign movies as some type of threat to the industry, given that China has taken in increasingly fewer American movies with every new year, with every new release. They say, can he do that? For previous tariffs, Trump has claimed authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, which gives him, the president, broad powers to regulate foreign trade in case of national emergency. The president has invoked that act on the theory that trade imbalances are a national emergency. Look, I don't think Hollywood being able to make more or less movies is in any way some type of threat to national security. In a lot of ways, I'd say that probably less is more when it comes to Hollywood. As much as I'd love a thriving industry, and more than anything, as much as I'd like to see the theaters succeed, I don't think that Hollywood is detrimental to our is beneficial to our national security in any way. If anything, they do a fantastic job of propagandizing American audiences all on their own. They've never needed the help of foreign studios to do that. Say what you want about China's influence on American films. When we did seem to really, really care, there have obviously been instances of changes that have been made to American movies because of requests from countries like China. And that is part of a global business model when you're creating all of these things and they all have the possibility of being considered insensitive to one of your core customer bases. That's always going to happen. But I feel like this is misplaced and that we should be looking at what Hollywood is doing as a whole and not necessarily how Hollywood and foreign countries play a role together, because I think Hollywood is causing these problems a lot all on their own. How would he do that? Films are intellectual property, and unlike goods, they have not been subject to tariffs. Some foreign countries, notably China, impose import quotas allowing a limited number of U.S.-made films to show in their theaters, but the mechanics of imposing an actual tariff are a bit tricky. Yes, like I guess it's not like an actual good that's being shipped in. It's being beamed out over the internet, right? It's not something that's going to be risked of waiting in port, at the port of Los Angeles. For U.S. companies that film overseas, the source of the runaway concern is not clear what transaction would be tariffed. When Disney makes a movie abroad, it doesn't import the movie from itself for a particular fee to show the U.S. audiences. The movie-going process is also highly internationalized, with some films shot partly in the U.S. and partly overseas. Editing might take place in the U.S. or Canada. Certainly that was happening with Disney moving a lot of their animated productions to Canada. That's something that everyone's had to worry about. It's weird because Hollywood wants to be working, and certainly there's all this stuff going on right now regarding tax incentives in California, because so much of the production is moved out of California that Hollywood is really a misnomer now, because it's an international business model, and a great majority of the things that are being made aren't even filmed in Hollywood or in California for that matter. I think what it is more than anything is that Hollywood wants government help. They want it in the form of subsidies, which I 125% disagree with. I don't think we should be using government tax dollars, our money, in any way, shape, or form to subsidize anything that Hollywood is making. Certainly, if they want to push movies and they are hell-bent on pushing movies with a certain message or idea, that should be a risk they take all on their own. Whether they want to get their foreign investors involved, that is now something that has to be considered here, but it should be their risk and their risk alone. And the U.S. government, the federal government, should not be involved in this. If the states want to get involved, to offer tax incentives on these films to bolster their own local economies, that I understand. But I do not believe that the federal government should be subsidizing anything that they're talking about here. When would he do that? This is the next question. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning opens up on May 23rd. It was filmed primarily in the UK. Is that subject to a tariff? Is it grandfathered in? When does this start? You can't do this to Tom Cruise. You have to leave Tom Cruise alone. He gets a blanket exception on all things. I declare it now. What about TV? Trump's Truth Post only talks about movies, but in recent years, more TV productions have gone overseas as well. TV productions in the UK, but not by non-UK companies, Inward Investment, surged past film productions in 2020 and has remained significantly ahead of the years since. That's interesting too. So one of the reasons people in the YouTube space want this or like this, the fact that things are filmed in the UK is because when things are filmed in the UK, because of privacy laws, they are able to get access to the information on what this money is spent on. So you get a clearer understanding of the budgets of some of these big budget Hollywood films being made by companies like Disney, which is usually something that they take very, very careful guard to protect because they don't like those budgets getting out. And certainly everybody knows that, Hollywood as a whole, the idea of Hollywood bookkeeping is a thing because everyone knows that you just move something from one column to the next column, you keep it moving, and you obfuscate any type of truth that might be found from the numbers. But the simple fact of the matter is that the box office and the money is the best way to gauge whether audiences care about any of this stuff. So putting this in place and perhaps possibly moving productions away from places like the UK, which do benefit people, at least as far as when it comes to transparency, that could be a problem. But theoretically, the workers in Hollywood would support something like this because it would incentivize Hollywood to bring those productions back home. Then it's not residents in the UK who are getting those jobs, it's American workers. So it goes on. We're going to move on here. We're going to talk about the industry is shocked and confused after Trump says he'll put a 100% tariff. Let's read some of these responses. The reaction in the UK, where so many US movies are filming, has been the most vitriolic. This makes no sense, a UK producer railed. It implies that a US film is meant to shoot in the US, but the Harry Potter films, Lord of the Rings films, and Schindler's List, Mission Impossible, Gladiator, Avatar, and so many more are US films that shot overseas for obvious reasons. Do these films have to shoot in the US from now on? It's an absurd announcement with no meaning nor understanding of storytelling or creative impulses. Well, look, again, you want subsidies, right? It is not U.S. taxpayers' job to subsidize your creative impulses. So if I have to choose between the two, I say neither, and we don't tariff and we don't subsidize at all, and we get the government out of the film and television business. Certainly, we should get the CIA out of the film and television business. Otherwise, we wouldn't have so many projects being greenlit to push CIA narratives, but that's a story for another day. But look, I get where the anger is coming. These people have invested a lot of money and time into these productions, so to have it upended is an issue, but I'll go on. I'll read a couple more here. Another British producer said, even unemployed Americans are saying this is nuts. These are people who have genuinely had their careers shattered because of production moving to Europe. So unemployed Americans are saying this is nuts, but they lost their job because productions moved to Europe. Wouldn't those people want it to move back to the US so that they could theoretically get a job again in their field because they're not having their work shipped over to other countries that are now subsidizing these projects, making it more of an appeal to these studios? Echoes another London, UK-based producer. If this goes the distance, it will decimate the industry, but you can't just stop production, he said. When does it come into effect? What about movies in pre-production that are shooting or are in post? What would you just double their costs? None of this has been thought through. So I think the calm response is, let's see what it means. Let's see the fine print. Yes, I do agree with your calm sentiment there. So people in Hollywood are angry. Let's take a look at what some of the people on the internet are saying, because look, producers in Hollywood have their own agenda. Fans have their own agenda. Commentators have their own agenda. Everyone has something that they want from something like this. And it is kind of a classic Donald Trump thing to make a statement like this and let havoc reign until it all gets figured out down the line, hopefully in a position, in a way that gives him a stronger bargaining position. But again, I will never say for a second that I think Hollywood has any problem propagandizing all on their own. I don't think it has anything to do with shooting in foreign countries. Eric July says, entertainment protectionism is silly, especially when you consider what type of material Hollywood has produced of late. That said, I wonder how far this logic will extend if it eventually hits video games and such. Many have went to the East, for example, for their entertainment. Some have also exclusively replaced all of their entertainment with Japanese material. Again, much in the same sentiment, though perhaps with a different desire for an outcome. He's echoing much of the same thing that the previous person said, except he's talking about it from the consumer base, not from the producer base. Disparu says, I could understand this for Hollywood productions that went abroad, but when will it be imposed on South Korean entertainment, anime, etc.? You're just cutting off the best entertainment, so only woke Hollywood is available, enforcing his own anti-him propaganda. Yeah, so if they can't go, if you can't import entertainment from other countries, you're left with just anti-Trump Hollywood propaganda like The Apprentice being made, and then it almost ends up as a double-edged sword that ends up harming him because they will go out of their way to create stories that show him in a bad light. It's kind of funny, they were talking about this yesterday about him doing yet another MSNBC interview, and it is like this weird thing, right? Where everybody knows that Trump pines for the approval of the mainstream because he was a darling of the mainstream for so many years. And it's weird to see him go back to that well over and over again, despite the fact that every time he does, they stick a knife in it, right? They stick a knife in his back because they frame his stories poorly. They misquote, they take his quotes out of context. They do everything in their power to show him in a negative way, but he still pines for that approval. And in a way, I feel like he feels like he's helping Hollywood when Hollywood would just as soon, put a knife in his gut rather than him, be helped by him or help him in any way, shape, or form. Weaponized Nerd Rage says, also was one of my favorite YouTubers for a very long time. Great content creator. Nah, big disagree on this one. 100% against. F everything about this idea. Yes, we need good movies again, but this will reduce exposure to foreign films and make our movies worse as a result. Filmmakers need to see to create. This person said, Chris says, LMAO, Hollywood came to Trump asking for a federal incentive for filming in America, and he responded by threatening a tariff on foreign-based productions. Certainly, I don't want to see what Hollywood looks like with even more of a monopoly. If anything, we should be, if we're going to incentivize creatives, we should be incentivizing small level creatives to create new art that is not hampered by the ideological rot that Hollywood is so hell-bent on pursuing. But let me know down below, guys, how do you think that this will shake out? I know this was a bit of a haphazard and a manic video, but much like a lot of the things that Trump puts into place, it kind of seems to denote that kind of tone. So let me know down below, do you think that this type of tariff will even actually end up getting implemented? And if it does, do you think this will benefit the workers in Hollywood? Do you think audiences will benefit from this, or more than likely, will audiences end up getting the short end of the stick on something like this, as Hollywood being forced to move production back to America and getting rid of all competition will have nobody to compete with but themselves? Guys, if you don't know, Pop Culture Crisis is live Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is noon Pacific. We have a lot of fun. You should join us there. See you then. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.